Okay, hi guys. I hope I'm audible to everyone. I have started the session and I hope you can all see me. All right. Okay, so we would be starting without any delay here. All right. Okay, I see a heart landing from somewhere. Okay, perfect. Um, all right. So, can someone send in a message in the chat box just for me to know that you guys can hear me and see me? All right, perfect. Okay. So I will just be sharing my screen and I'm going to start right away. Okay, so hi, welcome everyone. We're here for a session on sustainable menstruation, and this would be the first of its kind for Pratisandhi. Just to give you a brief about what is it that we do. We are basically an NGO which is dedicated to the cause of sexual health awareness, and we want to build a platform which would provide the kind of openness to talk about such issues which are considered taboo in our society, and collectively move towards a more progressive mindset. And today we have with us Miss Sanjina Gupta, who is primarily a gender rights consultant and also the founder of a feminist and youth-led organization named Rangeen Khidki. And she has been working in this social development sector for about 6 years now, gathering experience in health and education domain. And Sanjana is here to speak with us about sustainable menstruation, which primarily discusses the need to switch to healthier and sustainable menstrual products. And she will take you through what it means and why is it needed, and the means that we can adopt to make that switch. That would be it. Um, all right. Except that the only base rule here is that you will all have to wait for the session to end at 6 p.m. For the questions to be addressed. You can all use the chat box. As soon as Sanjana gives cue for the session to finish, you all can start sending in questions in the chat box, and we will address them one at a time. Is that okay? Can someone give a thumbs up or something so that I can tell Sanjana to please begin? All right, perfect. So I am going to mute myself here, and Sanjana, you can start sharing your screen. Yeah, you can take on.
Hi guys, am I visible, audible to you? Awesome, great. So I would quickly want to introduce myself. Already, Simran has. My name is Sanjina. I run an organization called Rangeen Khidki Foundation, and we are based out of Calcutta, but we are trying to kind of expand our work pan India on gender, sexuality, and reproductive health rights. So we are going to talk about sustainable menstruation today, what it is like, what it is all about, how do we switch to a sustainable menstruation lifestyle, why is it required. So today is Earth Day, right? And I don't think we have there would have been a better opportunity than talk about sustainable menstruation. So I think I'll quickly start screening my this thing screen over here. Just forgive me if there are some glitches because it's the first time I'm using this app, this medium and platform. So just bear with me if there's any issue. So we are going to mirror the screen right now. So you can see my screen, is it? Just like some high. Yeah, great. Okay, so I hope you guys can see my presentation. So we're going to talk about sustainable menstruation, understanding the facts about menstruation, and the need to talk about the sustainable alternatives. So we'll go run through the basic understanding of what is menstruation. So, menstruation is a natural bodily function and a vital sign of good reproductive health. So, why I made it, kind of put it in the PPT over here is because in a country like at least India, menstruation is a huge taboo. So, it is seen by a lot of women, a lot of menstruators in this regard. A lot of young girls often think that menstruation is an illness. Menstruation is considered as dirty. There's a huge dearth of information and awareness around menstruation and the whole process. Like, women do know that menstruation happen, they call it in different names. They use terms like masik, they terms use terms like तबीयत खराब है or things of that sort, and ganda khoon, like they use terms like dirty blood, which they directly associate with menstruation, but nobody really, I mean, in, only when you grow up and start learning about the system, biological reproductive system, in your class 9 standard biology books, till the point people don't even know what the process is like. And even in class 9 there's so much of shame, stigma, and taboo around this topic that even schools do not want to delve deeper into it's just like a very um, you know class is conducted just for the heck of it, and they have already rushed through the entire chapter of reproduction where menstruation is explained, and therefore it kind of the lack of awareness and lack of knowledge around menstruation kind of percolates across generations over here. So which is why we have to emphasize over and over again that menstruation is a natural process. Girls typically start to menstruate between 10 to 18 years old over here, because so this age is not the same for everyone. So since every body is different, every menstruator starts experiencing their first menstruation or menarche, we call it, at different times of in their lives. So it can be as early as 10, it can be as early as 16, 17, 18, and it's perfectly normal. It's now nothing to be worried about. If yes, but if you've crossed 16 and you have not attained your menstruation till now, you have not started a menarche by then, you can probably go and speak to a doctor, and the doctor can also guide you better, and so that even if you're having it late, even you're starting it late, you can be relaxed about it. What happens, it results in bleeding from the womb or the uterus and through our vagina. So which is why if you see the painting next to you, I mean the diagram, it shows all the organs that is present in the reproductive health, I mean organs. So it's one is the first one, if you see, is the uterus. This is where the baby is developing. The fertilized egg comes there, and then if there's fertilization that's happening, then it turns into a zygote and slowly starts developing. We have two ovaries on two sides, and then we have the fallopian tube. The work of the fallopian tube is to carry the egg from the ovary to the uterus. Cervix is where it's like the entrance from the vagina to the uterus, and the vagina is of the place where through which the semen travels, passes through the cervix, and reaches the uterus, where it meets the ovary at a certain time of the month. We are going to discuss that further in the next slide. What happens, how the menstrual cycle works? It usually occurs between 2 to 7 days on a monthly basis. The last one is pretty interesting because a lot of us tend to believe that we bleed a lot because when you see our sanitary napkins, which kind of acts as an absorbent over here, we do not. realize, or we are unable to understand how much of blood are we actually losing over here, because the blood spreads, and because of the certain materials, certain ingredients in the napkins, we tend to feel that okay, we are bleeding a lot, or sometimes we don't understand. So on an average, a healthy menstruator, on an average menstruator, loses about 30 to 35 ml of blood. But then also there are heavier and lighter flow that again depends from body to body. This one tiny thing that I want to talk about over here. I do not like, though the PPT talks about girls and women predominantly, but over time I realized it is important to use the term menstruator instead of girls and women only, because not all who menstruate are women, and not all who menstruate, I mean, do not menstruate, are not like only not girls or other things. So why I wanted to tell you this, because there are a lot of individuals who identify themselves as trans men, or non-binary, gender queer, gender non-conforming, who do not want to associate the term women with their identity. So it is for this regard, it is in this case that we use a more neutral term like menstruator. It can be a woman who identifies herself as a woman. It can be somebody who identifies themselves as something else, some other gender, but may be experiencing menstruation. So that's a deeper conversation that we can delve into at a later stage of life. I mean, later stage in the webinar if you want to. So this is the phases of menstruation. The first is the menstrual phase. The second is the follicular phase. The third is an ovulation phase. Fourth is a luteal phase. So what happens in the first phase, the menstrual phase? If you see the diagram pretty nicely, it's showing how the blood is kind of flowing from through the cervix into the vagina. So this is how we are experiencing. This is the time when we experience our menstrual cycle, basically the periods. Then we move to the follicular phase, where you can see the ovary on the right side. There's a small tiny dot which we call the ovum or the egg over here, which starts kind of developing, and the next process where the ovum gets out of the ovary, ruptures uh, through the ovary and gets into the fallopian tube. So that is in the third phase, which is the ovulation phase, which is when the ovum starts traveling through the fallopian tube into the uterus. And if you see the luteal phase, where the ovum is somewhere in the uterus. So notice something, that from the follicular phase, if you see the lining of the uterus, you will see that the lining is getting thicker and thicker uh, with every phase. So if you see the follicular phase, it's a little thinner. Then when you see it in the ovulation phase, it's getting thicker, and in the luteal phase, it's the thickest. Now, when we again from the luteal phase, again when we go to the menstrual phase, then this lining of blood starts shedding along with the ovum that was resting in the luteal phase, and then it slowly starts disintegrating, and then this is when we experience our cycle. So yeah, so these are the phases of menstruation, and we'll get into more details of how we can understand what the phases are like. So I'll just quickly give you 1 minute for you to again go through this phase. I'll hold the slide for now for 2 minutes so that you can see the entire phases, and then if you have questions, you can put it in the chat box later and we can discuss it. So I guess I'll move on to the next slide. What is the menstrual cycle? The menstrual cycle is a usually 28-day long process, but again, it's not something that is applicable for everyone. As I said, all bodies are different. Just like we may start at a different age from our friend, from our cousin, or from our siblings for that matter. We may experience the length of the cycle also differently, but then this is just for reference, a standard timeline of how the process works. So if you look on the left, it talks about the days and what happens in the process, and we have to kind of correlate it with the diagram that's on the right side. So if you see the first to 7 days, we are experiencing menstruation, which is when I'll go back to the previous slide once. The first phase, the first to 7 days, one is usually experiencing their menstrual phase. Again, the 7 day cycle is also different for different bodies. For example, I experience a shorter cycle where I experience my menstruation for 3 to 4 days. For some people it's longer, for some people it's shorter. It can be somewhere between 2 to 7 days actually. So the next phase, which is from 8 to 11 days, what's happening? Tissue and blood start lining the walls of the uterus. So even if you correlate it with the diagram that's on your right, it shows how that from day 8 to day 11, the tissues and blood in the line start lining the walls of the uterus. So which is here the follicular phase. Because if you see this the follicular phase diagram, you will see that the lining has already started forming. There's a thin line while the egg is the kind of getting released over here. Day 12 to 15 is the time we call ovulation, and also ovulation is technically the most fertile period in the cycle. So, for women who wish to conceive, usually aim to engage in sexual activities at this point, so that they end up conceiving. Uh, and also for young or for women who are not looking to conceive, this is a time you should be extremely careful about, so that you do not end up conceiving at this time. So again, this is the third phase, which is also showing you in the diagram that there's a thickness of the lining has gotten more intense, and this is the period when ovulation takes place. Day 16 to 25 is when the lining of the uterus starts dissolving in case the egg is not fertilized, so which is our luteal phase. So what happens, the egg waits of course for the sperm to come in and start the process of fertilization. So in case we do not allow that, in case one has not engaged in any sexual activity, or if one has engaged in safe sex practices, then the egg does not meet a sperm, which leads to slow disintegration slowly. So 26 to 28, the lining starts detaching, leading to menstruation, which is again the leading to the first part of the whole cycle. So yeah, so a couple of things that approximately, as I said, 28 days is the approximate cycle, but it can range between 21 to 35. For adolescents, young girls who are just starting to menstruate, it might be irregular in the first 1 or 2 years, and that's completely fine because the body takes a while to start getting its rhythm, and it's a cycle, so it takes a while for the body to set in also. Another quick sexual health tip: there are a lot of young teenagers, a lot of young menstruators often think that if they engage in unsafe sexual activities or practices without any sort of protection during any time of the cycle other than the ovulation period, it's safe. But it is not. Technically, yes, your 12th to 15th day should be the most fertile time, but it does not mean that you are safe for the rest of the days. So, if teenagers or if even young women who or young menstruators in this case are engaging in sexual practices, please use a condom, please use any form of other protection, because also the fact that protection is not just meant to stop from conceiving babies, but also to kind of arrest the chances of attracting any sort of infection. So this is one thing that I wanted to put it out there very openly. So yeah, you have to be technically careful even during your menstrual process. Even if you're engaging in any form of activity which might put you at risk, please do not think that okay, this is not the we can probably get into any activity without having any protection. Protection is always necessary. And secondly, in terms in case you have also decided, if you have kind of indulged in a sexual activity without having enough protection around you, uh, the morning after pill is not something that I would suggest to young menstruators, because this is, it's so well advertised on television and other media platforms that and so easily available over the counter that a lot of young people kind of consume it, but then it messes up the entire cycle, it messes up your body, it messes up your hormones. So it is always good to go to a doctor and probably use a more effective means and ways to contraceptives, rather than just consuming anything that's available on the counter. So yeah, that's a quick tip. And you can obviously ask more questions if you want to. I will try and answer as much as possible, because again, at the end of the day, I'm not a medical professional. I only talk from experience that I've gained over years in working in this space. So moving to the next one. So this is a couple of data points that can be helpful for you to understand why we need to normalize menstruation. So 48% of girls are aware of menstruation prior to menarche, which means about 52% of girls do not know what menstruation is like. 23% of adolescent girls are aware that uterus is the source of bleeding. You know, this really reminds me of a very interesting find that I have come across in my in these years of work. That not just young women, but even women who have delivered kids and like who are mothers to children, for the longest period of time, are not aware that there are three holes, uh, under the belly, or like in the lower waist area of the body. So there is of course one that is one outlet that allows us to urinate. There's one which is the vagina, which is different, which is placed differently. It's a little lower than the uh, urethra opening, and then there is the anus, which is where we pass stool. And yeah, so not a lot of women are even aware of that. So over here, if you're saying 23% adolescent girls are aware of the fact that uterus is the source of bleeding, almost like what, 77% of them do not know that either. So which means they don't know what the hell is happening in their bodies. 54% of the girls stated that a mother is the main source of information about menstruation. I think a lot of us also would agree that either some elder sister or some friends or mothers are our only source of accessing any form of information around menstruation. Um, 55% adolescent girls consider menstruation as normal, so which means 45% of us do not consider it as normal. So yeah, while this data gives you like somewhat positive picture, but you also have to kind of consider the data that is not being told over here. The last one is a very hard hitting data. 70% of mothers consider menstruation as dirty and polluting. So this data has been sourced from a report that was published by an organization called DASRA in 2014. The report is named Spot On. I think I've given sources in the PPT itself. I hope you can see it. So yeah, this report has brought out a lot of these data points that they have collected over time, and it has been a very good source of understanding what the scenario is around menstruation. Normalizing menstruation. So, what are the restrictions that are usually observed by adolescent girls? These are also restrictions that are coming from years of um, taboos, myth, stigma, superstitions that has kind of uh, gone from one generation to another, percolated through the multiple generations at the same time. The first and foremost of which talks about 77% of the girls observe some form of restrictions while visiting places of worship or touching religious items and praying. So imagine, I mean, I don't know how many of y'all have experienced this, or if in your culture and in your context, if you experience this, but at least I have grown up in a household where I was told that during the days when I'm experiencing menstruation, I am not pure, I am dirty, and therefore I should not be touching my altar or touching the God or worshipping God for that matter, because then the God will take offense. So this happens in quite a lot of cultures. 30% of girls observe some sort of food restrictions, which includes not eating certain kind of things, which again, overall, in an overall, macroscopic view, if you see it, ends up affecting the health of the girls over here. So yeah, so 50% of the girls say they do not. I mean, they have some restrictions on touching special food over here. The underlying reference is of the most common myth around menstruation is that if you touch pickles, Indian pickles, which are very common in Indian kitchens, if menstruating women or menstruating girls or any menstruators while being on the menstruation touches the pickle supposedly goes bad. So personally, I don't think it does. I have tried it. It does not. My pickles are pretty sorted. So, yeah, the next one, what we can see is girls, 26% girls sleep separately from household members during menstruation. 24% say uh, sit separately from household members during menstruation, and only 13% girls says that they do not observe any restrictions. So I'll just come back to the point where girls are sleeping separately or sitting separately. This is also a very common practice in a lot of Indian household. Even this reminds me of a practice that it was being practiced in Nepal for the longest period of time. It's called chopadi. In chopadi, there is so the uh, rule is, or like the belief is, that because a woman is impure at the time of menstruation, she's not supposed to be inside the same house as other family members. So they are given like a small, very poorly constructed uh, kind of huts, which are made of mostly hay and those kind of things, dry grass. It's not even like something that is permanent or that is airy. It's very small. You can actually look up on Google. It's called Chaupadi, Chaupadi in Nepal. And the woman or the menstruator in this case is expected to stay there for the 7 days when the person is experiencing menstruation. The food is delivered right outside that structure, and then all kind of bathroom needs, sleeping, everything has to be done inside that, and one cannot step out of that, one cannot take a shower, and stay there till the 7 days is over. So what happened? So this was there going on for years and years and years. Only very recently, I think a couple of years back, a lot of human rights organizations started pointing this out as a gross human right violation. If you see pictures, you will understand the kind of structure that these menstruators were having to stay in for the 7 days, and also there have been a lot of accidents. So I think I remember. This made quite a lot of news where a mother did not the father sent the mother out in the chop party for staying there for the 7 days, but she had two little children who she needed to take care of, and the children refused to stay in the house with the father and wanted to go stay with the mother in that in small tiny place. So one morning, all the three of them were found dead inside the chopadi, because there was a possible case of suffocation coming because of the carbon monoxide that was produced by the lantern that they were carrying inside the uh, chopadi over here. So there are millions of such cases where it has caught fire or they have died because of some sort of infection that they have contracted by staying there or things of the sort. So yeah, these are realities that happen, and even in India also there's a lot of other practices where the woman is asked to not to sleep on the bed, has to sleep on the floor away from the family, not go into the kitchen. There are so many, so it's endless actually. You know, when I go to various villages, work in slums and talk to these young adolescents, and they tell me such new superstitions and myths around menstruation, and it just, I think, gets uh, creative with every session that I do, because there are so many new ones. I think there are like, for every one myth that I countered, I get another three myths that is like thrown at my face, and it does not have any scientific explanation to it. So yeah, which is why this information was important for to share. The next one talks about the use of menstrual absorbent. Menstrual absorbent, as in any form of any product that one uses to manage menstruation over here. So 57.6% females aged between 15 to 24 years use hygienic menstrual absorbent during their periods. Again, the sources for this data are put below. If you want to go check it out, you can check it out further. So just 57.6%, which almost roughly means about 42.4%, do not use any form of hygienic menstrual absorbent. And out of these 56.7%, the majority people who are using menstrual hygienic menstrual absorbent are just 77%, 77.5% from urban areas, and only 48% from rural areas. So imagine how, like, what kind of representation is happening in the rural areas anyway. So type of menstrual absorbent that is being used: 45% use commercial pads, which are like brands like Whisper, Stay Free, which are like big corporates producing these, manufacturing these products. 50% still use cloth, 13% use cloth pad, 4% use cotton or homemade disposables, and 6% underwear only. And even if you kind of look in a more microscopic way, you will see that a lot of women in, or a lot of menstruators in the rural space, remote rural space, do not even have access to underwear. So they do not wear underwear. So they just use a piece of cloth and kind of tie it around their vagina, pubic area actually. And kind of, it can be any piece of cloth they find, and because they do not have access to clean products. So this is also a harsh reality in our country. Management of menstrual waste. So 45% of the women use routine waste disposal method, or dustbin, or burying it, like, yeah, dustbin over here. 23% throw away in open spaces like drains, rivers, wells, lakes, roadside, anywhere, like outside of the window. 15% burn it, 25% bury it, and 9% throw it in toilets or flushes it in the pit latrine. So, as a consequence of poor hygiene management, there is, of course, school absenteeism. So, there are a lot of things that we have to understand over here, that if a school does not give you a clean bathroom or does not provide you with a period friendly atmosphere at school where students understand what menstruation is, how to respect someone who is experiencing menstruation, how to bust myths, it automatically translate into school absenteeism, because uh, a child who is 11 years old does not have that kind of support system to continue to go to school, and therefore that automatically results in dropping out or remaining absent from school for 4 to 5 days every month. um, So yeah, that's what they're saying, that 24% girls reports missing school days during menstruation. So not just environment in school, but also environment at home. That sometimes even um, because of lack of any good absorbent, any good methods, along with huge amount of myths and superstitions, girls are encouraged by parents to not to go to school. So these are also some of the reasons why there's a mass dropout that take place the moment girls, I mean menstruators, hit class 8 or hit puberty. So here is a couple of questions that I wanted to ask you, and I want you to think about it, because right now we are not taking questions at this moment. So I just want you to think about it. That what kind of product do you use to manage your menstruation? And probably in this case, if you are coming from a very urban setting, I'm assuming you are, because you have access to good internet and access to a screen and laptop and things of that sort. So I'm assuming that you come from an urban setup. So in all probability, you will be, maximum of you will be using uh, disposable pads, commercial disposable pads. So just wanted to understand, how do you dispose it? Um, so So if you think, how do you dispose it, you will probably tell me at this moment that, Sanjina, we dispose it in the bin. We wrap it, and then after usage, we wrap it, we dispose it in the bin, and then we use another one right away. But have you actually thought that where does it go? Like, yeah, you put it in your bin, and then what happens to it? Where does it go? Probably it travels from your bin to a bigger bin, which is like a community bin or your society bin or your area bin, like a garbage dump area in your locality. From there, usually, if you have a municipality system in place, you will have someone coming in these huge trucks, garbage trucks, and collect your waste, and then they go away somewhere. But have you thought what happens to it? Like, yeah, somebody is coming in and collecting it from your local garbage dump area, and then where does it go? So it ends up going to a place called a landfill. So landfill is like a huge area where all sorts of products, waste products, land up. And then there are people and there are other systems in place where waste segregation takes place. But thankfully, in a lot of cities in India at this moment, waste segregation is taking place right at the source. So, in a lot of cities like Mumbai, Delhi, Calcutta, the government is saying that you have to source, kind of segregate your waste into kitchen waste and dry waste and things of that sort at source, so that it's easier for them to process the waste differently, instead of everything landing up in the landfill and then them having to kind of like segregate it again. But again, if you see the waste disposal systems, um, menstrual pads stand as biological waste, bio waste. So what happens to bio waste? We do not really know what's happening to bio waste, and even if you look up Indian standards, at least there aren't quite a special regulation in place that how these sanitary napkins are being disposed of. So when we say we are throwing it away, this is what usually looks like, I'm sure. So this is your menstrual pad. After being used, you are wrapping it up, putting it in your dustbin. It's going to a local garbage dump. If you can see the woman on your right, where she is using her bare hands to collect things that she can use to sell and earn money out of which, and then ultimately it is also going to a bigger landfill where so the wrapping that you nicely used to wrap your sanitary napkin, by the time it reaches either of the dumps, whether it's your local dump or the local landfill, the wrapper does not stay with the pad any longer and it's out there open. What is happening? Your blood, which is over time getting oxidized, the pad becomes a breeding ground of various forms of infections, bacteria development, which women like these, through manual scavenging, get in touch with, and then they are open to develop infections and diseases out of it. Then you have these dogs and cats. At least this happens in India. I am not probably in other places, but in India, this is what happens, that these stray animals start digging into these garbage dump, not because they want to dig, but because they're looking for food. And in that process, they end up tearing these pads, and it's quite a murky scene over here that I'm showing you. I'm sorry for that, but this is the reality. So now, why are we talking about sustainable menstruation? So what is happening? So as I told you that these sanitary napkins that we are using, what happens to it? Where is it coming from, and what happens after we use them? So yeah, sanitary pad manufacturing companies like the giant corporations, which are commercial brands, are not required by the Indian law over here to state what are the ingredients that goes into the making of the pad. So there are various products. So there are various companies that are making various brands. So they are not compelled by any law or any standard to mention what is going inside the pad. So these are usually labeled as medical products, and hence they are exempted from the ingredient listing. Now example, if you pick up any food product or anything for that matter from the supermarket, and when you look behind it, there's always the ingredient that is mentioned here. But if you look up the behind of the sanitary napkin, of the packaged sanitary napkin that you're picking up from your supermarket or from a local grocery store, you will not find any listing of this sort, and this is the reason why there isn't any listing. The chemical and plastic ridden commercial disposable sanitary napkins like Whisper, Stay Free, Sophie, and all these brands usually take 500 to 800 years to degrade, which means the one that you are using, that you may have used the first time, will stay on this earth even after you are long gone. Why I'm talking about plastic and chemical, we are going to understand that in the next slide. So yes, according to Women's Voices for the Earth, this happened sometime in 2014-15. You can again look it up on the internet. It's an American organization which did a study of a commercial disposable pad. They used the brand Always. So Always is also manufactured by Procter and Gamble, who are the manufacturers of Whisper in India. So here are some of the chemicals that they found inside one sanitary napkin. So one is called styrene, which is a potential carcinogen; chloromethane, which is a reproductive toxicant; chloroethane, which is again a carcinogen; chloroform, which is again a carcinogen as well as a reproductive toxin, as well as a neurotoxin; and acetone. Acetone is of course an irritant. So what happens with these pads, how it impacts us? So as we have seen in the previous slide that it takes very long, 500 to 800 years. So a lot of companies are coming up with solutions like incinerators. Even a lot of government schools in India are starting to look at incinerators in school, so that young menstruators after usage can directly burn the menstrual product. Now, what happened? Incinerators have a standard temperature that needs to be that is required to burn down the whole pad, which is prescribed by the World Health Organization. It's above, it's close, it's between 1200 to 2000 degrees centigrade. But then incinerators of that bandwidth are usually pretty expensive. So government schools cannot afford it, and even a lot of other institutions cannot afford it. So they make like a manual incinerator, which you basically has a sort of a chamber where you can put the soiled pads, and then there's another chamber underneath that where you can use any form of manual fire and start a fire inside it, and that ends up burning down the pads that are in the secure chamber. And it usually has a lid, sometimes does not have a lid. And what happens, uh, because these are manually done and the fire is not controlled and fire is not at that high temperature which is required, so it does not end up burning down the whole pad. so that simultaneously starts releasing toxic fumes in the environment, which, and this is also another reason why when I also do a lot of workshops and even a lot of menstrual health educators, when we do awareness sessions in communities, we try and tell them that please do not burn your pads in the open, do not burn your pads at all, because it has chemicals that is released in the air, and then that is something that you end up breathing yourself. The next one is women experience repeated infections, rashes, dryness, itchiness as a result of the constant exposure of irritants and toxic chemicals. So, this is something that I personally have experienced. Till the time I used these commercial pads, have I would experience repeated infections, UTIs, urinary tract infections, and the doctors could not figure out what was causing the infections repeatedly. So I would be on medications and tonics and pills, and I would get better, and then again 1 month later, I'm again suffering from the same. And it took me a while to realize why this was happening, and of course, rashes and dryness was a problem that I was anyway facing. Um, so yeah, so we'll move to the next one. So this is the graphic that Women Voices for the Earth had put it in their website also. So they kind of did this study with Always, which are all these brand like all these packs, and you can see how what like they have equated the chemical with the regular chemical, like with the form that we are more aware of. So what is styrene? Styrene is something that is used in car tires. Acetone is something that is used in our nail paint remover. Chloromethane is used in petroleum refining, and chloroethane is styrofoam basically. Styrofoam is those thermocol glasses that we often use to drink, sip something out of. And so styrofoam itself is something, is a form of plastic, and it does not disintegrate very easily. So, and they says that these testing shows chemicals which are linked to cancer, reproductive harm, and allergies. None of these chemicals are listed on the label, and we do have a right to know. So, I will again leave this for a minute for you to kind of take it all in, because it's a lot of information over here. Okay, so we'll move on to the next one. So, a lifetime of menstrual waste. So, what's happening? So, if you see the left one, the small tiny bar, it has it is comprised of many tiny menstrual pads. So, this is a menstrual waste that probably one generates over a month, or maybe in a couple of months. And as we grow, this gets bigger and bigger, because the commercial pads that we are using is not disintegrating, it's not degrading, it's not biodegradable, so it continues to remain on earth. So as we grow, like as we experience menstruation over years and keep using these products, the bar gets higher and higher and higher. And then the next one, it's saying that this is a case of tampon, but it can be tampon also obviously has similar material as the sanitary napkin. So if a lifetime of tampons were stacked together, the height would be about 1.6 kilometers, which is equal to 5 Eiffel Towers. So this is the waste that you and I would be generating over our lifetime of experiencing menstruation and using commercial pads. Menstrual waste in India. So this is some data from India. In India, there are approximately 355 million women from the menstruating age. Almost 50% of them use disposables, which we have seen earlier in our data. And this creates close to 90,000 tons of sanitary waste every year. So that's about 90% as heavy as the Eiffel Tower. So yeah, that's a pretty intense piece of information over here. So what are the products that we are talking about? So these are menstrual cups and washable cloth pads. So I will quickly tell you what menstrual cups are. So menstrual cups are made of medical grade silicone. They are bio-inert in nature, hence does not interact with the body. It collects the blood instead of absorbing the blood. It is reusable. It can be worn up to 10 to 12 hours. It can last up to 10 years, depending on the brand that you're buying. It's cost effective, and of course, it does not harm the environment. And once you are done using it for 10 years, you can go and bury it again. So the ideal way of burying any product, even if you're burying a sanitary napkin, the ideal way is to bury it uh, 1 feet inside, sorry, 1 meter inside the earth, into the earth. So this is a small demo of how we can use menstrual cup. We can discuss this further if you have questions. And then you will find also a lot of videos on YouTube which talk about how you can use the menstrual cup. So the first step is obviously washing your hands for minimum 20 seconds with soap under like good running water. Then you have to fold the cup in a certain way. It's saying that you fold it from both sides, and in the third diagram, it should look like a C fold. So there are some other folds also that you can again get a lot of information about it on your YouTube channels. A lot of YouTube channels are there. You can also follow me, my personal account. You can reach out to us if you need more information. We can talk in detail how we can go about using menstrual cups. And then you have to squat a little bit and then insert the menstrual cup inside the vaginal canal. And in the fifth diagram, you can see how it is going up inside the vaginal canal, and in the sixth, how it sits very conveniently inside the canal. So what happens? The If you see this is our cervix. So this is a view of the reproductive system from the side. So this is my vagina, this is how it is going inside and sitting here comfortably. This is my cervix, this part is my cervix, this is my uterus. So the blood comes out of the cervix and sits and comes out and directly lands inside the.
Hi, Sanjina.
Yeah,
The PPT isn't visible anymore.
it's not visible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Ever since you started explaining the menstrual pad, so it's not visible.
Okay, just a second, let me check.
Right.
Just a second. I'm
Yeah,
trying to
if it's
see.
not working, I have the PPT that you shared with us, so I can access it for you just in case.
I think somehow the screening has stopped. Just give me a second. I'll just turn on the.
Sorry, I think there's something wrong with your network. Let me know if you want me to open the PPT instead, just in case it's not working from your end.
No, I think my screening stopped for some.
All right, it's okay. Just try it again.
It is
Yeah, yeah,
visible.
yeah. Yep, yep, it's visible again.
Yeah. Can you see the PPT now?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I'll again go back from the first one. So if you see, it's showing that you have to wash your hands, and then the next one shows how you fold the cup. The third one shows a C fold, and then the fourth one shows how it is going inside the vagina. And then once it's inside the vagina, so the fifth and the sixth diagram shows the side view of the reproductive system. So if you can see my cursor, so this part is the cervix. So this is the entrance point of the uterus from the vagina. So the what happens that as the blood trickles down from the cervix, it comfortably reaches the menstrual cup, and the menstrual cup, because of the suction system, stays put in that position and refuses to come out very easily. So there's a system also, that there's a technique how you take it out. So we can explain that later if people are interested, or you can of course go and look up a lot of videos are there on you know YouTube for your information. So we can do that as well, whatever is convenient for you. And there's a paucity of time, so I have to move on. So now, yeah, so this is about, now the next product is cloth pads. It's made of cotton. It's again reusable, it's washable. It can last up to 3 to 5 years or up to 75 washes. That depends on the quality that you're using. So, for example, Indian brands like Ecofem, Anahat, Soch, these are all very local homegrown brands which you can use. They are usually they come in leak proof uh, kind of designs, pad shape designs also, and they last you over 3 to 5 years very easily. So yeah, there are a couple of shapes. There's a pad shape, there's a foldable model, things of that sort. I can show that while I go back to the video. The stain does not last. So the trick about getting the stain off cloth pads is that you have to kind of soak it and wash it in cold water and never in hot water. Once you put it in hot water, the stain refuses to go. So the trick is always use wash it in cold water, and the uh, blood stain does not stay. It's, and the best part is it's cost effective and chemical free. So why I'm talking about these two products as being cost effective? Because yes, a menstrual cup, the standard decent menstrual cup costs between 700 to 1500 rupees. There are also cheaper brands. You can find a lot of them on Amazon. I personally use a brand called Boond. It's again a homegrown brand. Um, their cups come in about, they it's a standard size that they have, and it's priced at about 700, 800 rupees. So yes, at the in the beginning it sounds a little costly, but the thing is, if you calculate, say if you're buying a pack of good quality whisper pads, those are approximately 100, rupees a pack, and that you use a month. So like a 15 pad a pack is usually 150 or 200 rupees. I don't know. I haven't used it for a long time, so I don't know the costing at this moment. But yes, 100 is for sure. So if you're using spending 100 rupees a month, that amounts to 1200 rupees a year into how many ever years that you're using it. So versus a menstrual cup which you're buying for 800 rupees, or even if it's for 1000 rupees, it's lasting you for 10 years. So you can calculate the math. And similarly for cloth pads also, it's made of cotton, so therefore it's a little expensive in that case. So but usually again Ecofem I think sells one piece for 200 or 250 rupees. Anahat sells it for about 150 or 200 rupees. Soch also sells a piece for about 200 rupees. So even if we standard like have considered the standard rate of 200 rupees, and one would usually need about like 4 pads, because you're using it, you're washing it, and you have to give time to dry it out also. So 4 pads or 5 pads for one menstrual cycle is a good amount of pads that we have. So even if I'm buying 5 pads worth 200 rupees each, I'm spending 1000 rupees. That's going to last me for 3 to 5 years, as opposed to 1200 rupees a year that I'm spending between the four disposables. So that's why it's economic in one way. So I will now quickly, I think it's 6 o'clock. Um, yeah, and I'll just take about 5 minutes to show you how cloth pads look like, and then we can open the room for questions. So I think I'll stop sharing the screen and come back to the camera. Uh, am I visible to you, all of you guys? Can somebody just say a hi or something? Yeah, cool, great. So I'll just quickly show you. So this is the packaging, that this is Boond cup, and again I'm not promoting any brand. I have this for me at this moment, therefore I am showing you. So this is a cool packaging that it comes in. This is how a menstrual cup looks like, and how do you use it? So in the diagram that we shared in the PPT, It showed that you kind of press it and fold it this way, and then it looks like a C, right? If you look at it, it's like a C that it looks like. And then you kind of insert it. You have to squat. You can't be standing and putting it in, because if you see the, go back to the diagram, or even if you see it online, so our vagina is not like straight, so it's a little inward, it's a little slanted, so it's like this. You have to insert it this way. So when you're squatting, you're anyway helping the vagina to open up a little, and it's squatting, and then you can basically push it up in. Once you push it up, it opens up naturally. And then if you can see, there are these small holes. So these small holes acts as a vacuum suction system, so it kind of sucks in the air and it remains stuck in your vaginal canal. um, Couple of things that, yes, you have to wash your hands before you start your cycle, or you're about to use this. You have to sterilize this. You have to boil it in boiling water for about 10 minutes, 10 or 11 minutes, and after which you can wash your hands and then put it in. Every time you take it out, you empty the contents in your pot or some, anywhere you're comfortable, and then wash it under regular tap water, and again use your fold, whatever you're comfortable in, and then put it back. This can be actually worn for 8 to 10 hours, actually 12 hours. I have worn it for 12 hours, but that depends on your flow. So if your flow is heavy, then you cannot wear it for 12 hours. So I would suggest for anyone who is a new user over here, always try and use it for about 4 5 hours, for up to 4 to 5 hours for the first time, to figure out the how much are you bleeding actually. So this collects the blood, so when you actually take it out, you can see how much of blood you are actually it's collecting. And it has like, I don't think you can see it from inside, but over here there is like a scaling given which says um, 6 ml and 15 ml, so you can basically see that how much has it reached. And always, if you're thinking of trying it, please try it during your menstrual cycle. Do not try it when you're not on your menstrual cycle, because the blood makes your vaginal canal very lubricated, and therefore it helps in the process of the cup going inside smoothly. If you're not on your periods, then if you try to push it in, it might hurt. So therefore I would suggest always try it during your cycle. If you're not comfortable, if you're scared, please do it while you're at home. Maybe do it on a weekend. Try it out accordingly. Take your time. It takes a while to get set with the menstrual cup, because it's a new product. It happens with everything. I'm sure the first time you started wearing a pad, or you started wearing a bra or something, tying up your hair differently, or wearing a earring for the first time, it was uncomfortable until you got used to it. So give yourself that time. How do you take it out? So it's inside like this. So Booth cup has a short stem. I like short stem because I am not a fond of long stems. But again, if you look up on the internet, even the picture that I shared in the PPT, it had a longer stem. So you can figure out what is comfortable for you. The stems, the ones which come with longer stem, are usually adjustable, so you can kind of trim it a little if you want the, this one, the what do you call it, the tip to get smaller. So in this case it's a small thing, so a small knob kind of a stem. So if it's inside, and this is my vagina, and the whole thing is supposed to be inside, nothing is supposed to remain outside as the diagram showed. So I will just wash my hands again, try to squat again, and try and put my hand a little inside the vagina and try to locate this tip. Once I can locate this tip, I have to press this bottom. And why do I have to do this? That because there's a suction system that is working. So once I put it, the air is released out of the suction, and then I can just kind of take it out very easily. The taking out process can be a little again scary, because you don't know how to do it in the first go. It's something that you learn. You might spill it a little bit, so have access to a clean washroom if you have to. You might spill, that's okay, it's not a problem. It's your own blood, it's not dirty blood. It's the blood that is going to create a new life in you at some point. It is a healthy thing, so nothing to be worried about if you spill a little bit. So that's okay. And then you can empty it and again put it back. Yeah, these are some of the tips that I have around the cup. And yes, always, and yeah, once your cycle is over, boil it again in boiling water for same time around 10-11 minutes, and then you can put it back, store it here, and keep it away and wait for your next period. So take a little while. For example, I actually bought a very cheap one that I found on Amazon. It was barely what, 300 or 400 rupees, because I didn't know if I was comfortable using it. So it took a while. It took me about a couple, like I bought it and then kept it in my drawer for a very long time. And then I was decided that no, I need to make the switch. I want to make the switch. I kind of resonated why it was important to me, the cause. And yeah, over time I got used to it, and then I didn't like that product any longer because it was too soft. Yeah, but Boond has a standard size. Sirona, True Cup, and these brands have different sizes. If you are below the age of 25, and you haven't birthed a child out of your vagina, then please use a small size. Start with a small size. If you think this is not enough, then you can move to a bigger size. For women who have produced, kind of given birth to children, they have to use a bigger size, like a large size or something. So that again is a trial and error thing that you can use. And yeah, always start with a small size so that it's easier for you to kind of navigate through this process. So I'll quickly also take you through what cloth pads look like. So this is how a cloth pad looks like. This is a product that is made by EcoFam. So EcoFam is an organization based out of Auroville in Pondicherry, Tamil Nadu, a state in India. So this is how it looks. It has buttons, these buttons, if you can see. So basically, you have to wear it just like your sanitary napkin. So you kind of put it in your underwear and then button it properly. You have to ensure you're wearing a well-fitted underwear, otherwise this might move around like turn. So wear a well-fitted underwear, and yeah, this is supposed to absorb your blood. So I will just show you an open one, and then it will help you understand what are the layers that goes into it. So this is an open pad that I'm trying to show you. So this is the first layer. This is called flannel. Flannel is a form of cotton cloth. So it's basically the cloth that we use to wipe our spectacles in our spectacle boxes. So this is made of that. Inside of that, we have layers of cotton. So these are organic cotton. So EcoFem uses organic cotton. Other brands use local cotton. So that depends, which is why EcoFem is a little more expensive. But it is up to you. You can do your research and buy the one that you want to. So these are what? How many layers? I think there are 6 layers of cotton cloth. There are more with more layers. So that is again up to you. And this, if you can see, this is a PUL. It's called polyurethane layer. So it's basically cotton cloth. This side is cotton, and there's a plastic layering, like lamination of a plastic layer, and it is meant to be at the bottom of the pad so that this your blood does not leak. So this acts like your leak-proof layer. Yes, it is true that there is some amount of plastic in this product because there's no other way they could devise a better leak-proof method. But again, this is 90% plastic and this is 1% plastic. So it's a choice that you can make, and this you're using and you are throwing it away every time. This you're using, washing it, drying it, and using it over and over again for a good amount of 3 to 5 years, depending on the quality that you're buying. The foldable model that I had mentioned looks something like this. This looks like a hanky. This is a product that has done very well. So this is for basically women in spaces where they are ashamed to even accept, understand what periods are, and they don't want to kind of use this model to dry it out in the open because they are ashamed. Like there's a lot of stigma around it, and we cannot really infuse behavioral change at this moment. So this works well because when you open it up and kind of dry it, it just looks like a piece of cloth. And women, a lot of rural women actually, and even urban slum women find very comfortable using these products. So this is all the same. This is a layer of, these are two layers of cloth stitched together with a similar layer of flannel that I discussed, this flannel. Yeah, so there's a flannel inside it also. And this part is again a leak proof layer. So I don't know if you can have this sound, that I don't know if you can receive, like, hear it. So this is again a plastic layer. And then there are buttons. So basically you fold it and then fold it again and then place it on your underwear like this, and then tie your wings, and then you can use it. So this is one, this is another one. So there are a couple of these products that are there out in the market. So yeah, I think that's about it. One tiny thing you might be thinking about cloth, because we have been told from a very long time that a cloth is not a good option, cloth is not hygienic. But cloth is hygienic as long as you are using a clean piece of cloth, and after usage you're washing it properly and you're drying it in the sun. The sun has a natural disinfectant characteristic which kind of kills all sort of bacteria. Because even the cloth that I mean the clothes that we wear are materials, I mean, most, like, I wear a lot of cotton stuff which I use, wash, and dry it again and again wear it uh, without even thinking twice. So cotton is not bad as long as you're using fresh pieces. Why we have been categorically told over years to not to use cloth is because a lot of women do not use clean cloth, or even if they use cloth, after washing they just kind of put it in some dark corner. They do not store it well, they do not wash it and put it in the sun. They kind of keep it in dark rooms, dry it in dark spaces, which makes it unhygienic. So if it's a clean piece of cloth or clean, say, cloth pad, then it's not supposed to infect you in any way. So, because traditionally, at least in India, women and menstruators traditionally have used cloth over time. Like my mother, grandmother, they have all used it and they are fine because they have maintained that basic hygiene, yeah, system in place. So yeah, I think I'm done. So there are, okay, couple of questions. Simran, should we start addressing the questions?
Hi, yes. Okay. All right, you could just like take the person's name and start addressing the questions one by one.
Yeah, sure. So Jessica has asked, can you advise on how do we choose a perfect cup for ourselves? So yes, as I discussed, always choose. I'm assuming you are below 25 years of age. So even in that case, please go for a smaller cup, whatever brand you're using, and then see it for yourself. I am 25, but I use a small cup because I'm comfortable with that. So I think that's up to you. Always start with a small cup and then see how it works out for you. Yeah. So Pratisandhi, like, is asking a question. How do you suggest using cups in public washrooms where we may not have a private space to clean or empty it? So I have personally used it in airport washrooms, but I don't know, in a lot of public restrooms, it is difficult if you do not have clean access to clean water. So the best alternative over here is, if you can just take a bottle of water with you. Uh, can be drinking water, it can be in packaged water, anything that is available at that moment, and just to kind of clean your cup in case. I can't find the cup somehow. Misplaced it. Yeah. So this is the cup. So when you're empty it, you empty the contents, and if you don't have clean water in the washroom, please use a bottle of water. Pour the water, wash it nicely, and then probably use a hand sanitizer, or again wash your hands with soap. If I'm sure public washrooms have access to soap, so use the soap and clean your hands, and then don't put soap on your cup, in your cup, because then there are possibilities of the soap remaining in the cup if you don't clean it properly. So wash it with water. Make sure that these holes that you have, the suction holes are clean. So when you're washing, ensure that the suction holes are clean, everything is clean, and there's no speck of even like any drop of blood remaining. So if the suction holes are clean, then it will go and stay tight in the vagina. Otherwise, it might not stay tight, and it will start. It might just start leaking and things of that sort. Okay, quick question I forgot to address at that point: that how do you understand if it's leaking? So you usually understand like there's a weird feeling like as if there's some bubbles inside the vagina. So that's the kind of feeling that you experience. But please do not wait for that time when you want to experience how it is. So the first step is when you put it inside to understand if it's placed properly or not. You need to just kind of hold the tip and try to pull it. So when you try to pull it, if it's stuck properly, it will not come out easily. Okay, so that indicates that it's stuck properly. If it comes out easily, it means that it did not go and place itself properly. So check that every time you put it in, and then there won't be any leakage. If it is full, it still takes a while to leak, kind of start leaking, because it has to kind of break the seal and then come out and leak. It takes a while. It never leaks like in a like it starts leaking drop by drop. It's not a lot of leaking that happens. So do not wait for that time. That's why I'm saying that try it while you're at home. Slowly increase the hours of your usage from 4 to 6 to 8, and then you will understand how your body is, how much you're bleeding and how much the cup is able to kind of absorb, collect the blood. So yeah, I think I have answered the question. Aklima asks, why is it not advisable to take painkiller during a menstruation? See, it is advisable depending on what the intensity of pain that you're experiencing. So what happened, there has been a lot of normalization of the pain, right? So none of us really know what amount of pain is bearable or not. So I would on a personal level suggest that please go to a doctor and ask for a prescribed medicine. If the doctor is suggesting you to have a medication, then you can please go ahead and have a painkiller, because there are a lot of women who experience conditions like PCOS, conditions like endometriosis. Endometriosis specifically is extremely painful. So the threshold of pain endurance also depends from bodies to bodies. So therefore, if it's advisable by the doctor, it's advised by the doctor, you can please have it. Otherwise, one of the most effective ways of handling menstrual cramp is daily form of exercise. Any form of exercise, especially squatting or maybe some yoga or some walking, even helps in reducing cramps. And this has been advised by the doctors also at this moment, that even days when you're experiencing a lot of cramps, if you just go out and kind of walk for about 10-15 minutes, like a brisk walk or a light brisk walk, you can actually control the cramps. And of course, there are a lot of home remedies like using a hot water bottle, having hot water, using other forms of home remedies that a lot of mothers know actually. Those are also quite effective. But I personally use like do a lot of yoga around that time, which I'm comfortable with. Nothing like, I don't do very intensive or rigorous exercises. I mean, I don't have a problem, but I can do it, but I don't want to. So, and strangely with the cup, you can actually do everything. Like you can continue urinating, because as I explained, there are two different holes. You can sleep, you can swim, you can cycle, you can jog, you can do rigorous exercises. So if you want, you can do that, but a light walk, light exercise, light jogging actually helps you in the cramp. If it's not, then you have to go to a doctor and probably seek more intense treatment for this. um, Akansha is asking, won't this cloth pad slip around during movement or leading to spillage? So I think I've answered that question. So if you wear a well-fitted underwear, which is like, well, not too loose, this should not move. I mean, it has not moved for me, because if it's stuck to the body, so it's not supposed to move, and it takes the shape of the body. And because of its wing, it can move up, front and back. So this is a standard size. There are bigger sizes also. If you want, you can order bigger sizes, like longer sizes, which you can use at night if you are scared of spillage or leakage or anything of that sort. uh, can a sanitizer disinfect the cup? No, Do not use sanitizer. Do not use any form of chemicals. Do not even use soap, because there might be remnants of those of that chemical that can stay with the cup, and when you're putting it inside your body, it can react with your body. So please do not use. The best way to disinfectant a cup is boiling water, or if you do not have access to boiling water, maybe hot water, very hot water. You can just dip it in hot water and keep it, but this should not be a regular practice. Always try to boil your water. If you're unable to boil it, then yeah, hot water works, but that can only be once in a while. And even going back to the question, if you can use washroom in the public washrooms, if it's the first time that you're using, for example, I was traveling to rural India last month when I started menstruating, and I did not have access. I was staying in a hotel and I did not have access to boiling water, and my roommate was not comfortable if I used the electric kettle to boil my cup. So in that case, because I had already boiled it the last time when I used it, I sterilized it the last time when I used it. This time I just use some hot water to wash it off and then start using it. So that's doable. But again, always try to stick to sterilizing before and after the usage, so that helps. Uh, can you please explain the process of sterilizing the cup again, and how to sterilize in a hostel where you do not have access to boiling water? Um, So yeah, as I said, the best way to sterilize it is hot water, boiling it in hot water. So I would suggest that if you could source hot water anywhere, so probably I don't know, back in my hostel we had a like electric kettle, so that kind of helped us with tea and Maggie and things of that sort. So you have to get kind of sort that out. How do you access hot water, boiling water? So if you have a I would suggest that if you're purchasing this, might as well, if you don't have already, purchase a kettle, like an electric kettle, and use that to boil your cup for at least 10-15 minutes. And the best part is, so the electric kettle kind of switches off after the water reaches the boiling point, right? But then if you open the lid and you continue boiling, the switch does not get turned off. So in that is the best way over here. You can drop it in and can let it boil for like good 5-10 minutes, and then use it. And yes, sometimes you can obviously use hot water, but I would again suggest, at least, you know, I mean, unless you're in dire situation, try and use boiling water and not hot water, because sterilization is important over here. So I don't have any more questions over here. So if there's any other questions, then I'm ready to answer. Simran?
Yeah, I think let's give like 30 seconds if anyone else wants to, like, we have like a timeline up until 6:30. So yeah.
Yeah. So you can look up there are a lot of videos on YouTube. Please look it up. There is, I think, Boond has their own videos. EcoFun has their own videos. I think I'll just try to the company name. So look up these channels on YouTube, and you will find a lot of information around cloth pads and menstrual cups. You can other brands of menstrual cup are Corona, um, True Cup. If you're outside of India, then there's Unit Cups. There's a lot of brand actually that are available. For cloth pads, there's a brand in Calcutta named Anahat. There's Soch based out of, I think they're in Delhi. Um, yeah, there are couple of them that are available. Look up on Amazon and other even Facebook. You can drop us a message. Uh, should I share my email address? If you have any question, you can email me as well.
Yeah, so I think like a post or a story which we'll put up on our Instagram maybe, then we'll share your
Sure.
details and tag you so that they can reach out to you on multiple platforms.
Perfect.
We'll do that as well. We'll make sure that they get access. So I am presuming there are not many questions, except that you have feedback in the general
Yeah,
section.
I am reading that. Francis, thank you so much. This has completely exceeded my expectations. Thank you so much for the valuable information. Thank you so much for being here, for joining us, and for this great, allowing me to speak on this great platform. Also, thank you, Pratisandhi, for that. Niyati, Simran, the entire team. And please reach out if there's any other question. I'm always there. I think they'll tag us on my organization and my personal handle on Instagram, Facebook. Anyway, Pratisandhi is going to tag in their post. You can follow us, ask questions, DM, email. We're always there to support. Thank you so
Yes.
much, Christine.
So thank you, Sanjana, and everyone. 33 of you left here. Yeah, so we're having like feedback coming in. Yes, this was very informative, and we definitely make sure that we tag your handles in whatever post we're putting up. And yes, so for whoever's here, I just like to slide in a little reminder that we have our next session on the 24th. You can check out our Instagram page for more details of it. You can join in and ask questions and try to make this as interactive as possible. And Sanjana, again, thank you so much. This was very, very informative. I think one reason why people do not want to make that switch from the commercial methods of menstrual sanitation is because of the taboo around it, because we do not have enough information. And yeah, I think that's about it. And thank you so much for just, doing your bit and enlightening us with all these new things.
Thank you so much once again. So, thank you. Oh my God, thank you so much for your
Wow,
feedback. I'm loving it.
you're being
I,
flooded in with all these lovely
thank
things.
you, Morel. Thank you, Shivani. So, also, yeah, if you could also do more sessions of this sort, I would be really great. Uh,
100%, 100%. We'll
yeah.
we'll keep in touch. We'll make sure that we loop you in for anything like this. We could come up with like a new edition, if like, or probably a continuing session as to whatever we covered today. And
Sure.
yeah, and we'll make sure that we tag Sanjana's accounts so that you can personally reach out to her as well, just in case you have more queries that you do not want to address publicly, because I think that would be one case as well. So yes, I think we are going to end the session here. So wow. Oh, that was you, the one with the heart. All right, perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Sanjana, for joining us. And we will see you all on the 24th now.
Yep.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.